Hey, everybody. Hey, Nightworms. Hey, YouTube. I am your host today for a very special event with my special guest, Chandler Morrison. Hi, Chandler.
Hello.
Chandler is one of my favorite authors, I don't mind saying. And we are celebrating the launch of his new book that has been printed through My Dark Library, which is a curated line of novellas that I did for Cemetery Gates Media. And Thigh Gap it's on the loose. It's available. It's ready. It's out. So we're going to celebrate that today. Chandler, thank you so much for being here with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Where are you right now in your
Uh,
purple
I'm
paradise?
yes, I'm in my apartment in Los Angeles. I have a desk set up here, and I spend a lot of time at it, and that is where I currently am situated.
Nice. I like it. It's very atmospheric.
Yeah, I have mood lighting that I got a couple months ago. I can change the colors. I mainly keep it pink because I just like pink.
Yeah, it's a soft glow. I have a Himalayan salt lamp that I turn on at night, and it's my favorite glow.
Yeah, that having that like soft glow, like it does something for the vibes.
Yep.
I'm all about vibes. So
Yep. I totally agree. I love vibes. That's why I'm drinking my Earl Grey tea out of my new Hollow Queen mug because I am a fucking queen, and you get a mug for that.
I I agree.
Right? Okay. I have some questions for you because Thigh Gap, when it first descended into my sub call email and your name was attached to it, I was beside myself, I have to say. I felt very honored that you would submit a story to my little novella call. And I kind of like rubbed my hands in anticipation before I jumped into it. Obviously, the title like spun me first. Um, but what I really want to know, my first question is, I mean, part of what drew me to this story is because part of the call was specifically targeting authors who wanted to like rebrand themselves or kind of write a story that felt more like their story, like a story they wanted to tell. And I felt like, and I could be wrong, but I felt like you might have been drawn into the call because of that portion of it. But I don't know. So that's what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong at all. I mean, there were two things that drew me to the call. First, at the risk of sounding obsequious, was your name. Because we have a rapport, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for you, and so that was what kind of got me to just click the link to begin with, to look at the sub call, and then um, but you're right, that piece about wanting to rebrand, like, that really stuck out to me and felt like it was written like for me, because I um, I, like, we've kind of talked about, I am interested in branching out, doing something uh, somewhat new with my work, and doing something that I think is truer to my artistic vision, and and I think hashtag Thigh Gap represents that, and it's worth noting, like, hashtag Thigh Gap has everything that my previous work has, and I think that fans have come to expect from it, in that it has, the tragic romance and the sadness and the yearning and the the satire and the dark glamour, themes that I I use a lot. The one thing it doesn't have is violence. There's not any violence in it.
Yeah.
And I've just I feel like um, the the violence has in my past work has kind of overshadowed what I was really trying to do with my other books,
Yeah.
and that's what a lot of them are known for. And it when really that was never the the intention, um, and what I've like I've always been trying to accomplish something much deeper than just violence for the sake of violence with my previous books. But I think because the some of the violence in some of the previous books has been so visceral, it tends to um, distract from the rest of the themes and the narrative.
Mhm.
And so, what I was interested in doing with this book is just stripping it down to like it's still Chandler Morrison in every way except for that violence, um, and the violence was never was never the point to begin with. So I think it's a rebrand in a sense, um, but it's but more than that, I think more accurately, it's more of a clarifying of the brand, because I I became known for a certain type of book and that was never my intention. And so so what I'm really trying to do with this is clarify, like this is what I want to do with my art. Um, so that's a long way of saying that yes, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah. I mean, it would be silly for us to think that like artists as they grow and mature like aren't going to evolve in the way that they represent themselves in the way that they want to tell stories. So, I mean, you're definitely just on track, with that. Like you're just putting out work that kind of moves along with you in your journey. So, I mean, I just being on TikTok once in a while on book talk and horror talk on those hashtags, and and seeing like young people reading Dead Inside like it's a double dare challenge or something. Um, it kind of cracks me up because it's like I wish that that was just a gateway to your work and that they would keep going. But I feel like it's the same way that they do with like Duncan Ralston's Womb or Eric LaRocca's Things Have Gotten Worse. It's just like read this book, oh my god, it's the most disturbing thing I've ever read, what the fuck. Ugh. And then it just becomes a talking point on TikTok, and then they just move on to more of the same, but they don't dive deeper into an author's work. So if there are any YouTubers or TikToks or whatever watching this video, like my encouragement would be to like do the deeper dive on, some of these authors, because that's just one piece of a much larger puzzle that makes up an entire body of work from an author. I mean, and that being said, I feel like this LA noir vibe that you have going on, like we saw it a little bit in that metaverse part of your book with Death's Head Press, the splatter western, where you kind of break the fourth wall and talk directly to the reader. And then I read a novella, I think it's a novella or a novel, coming out through Stygian Sky soon, that definitely has that LA um, kind of similar, well, very similar to hashtag DIGAP. So, do you want to talk about that a little bit, your connection to the city, as somebody who lives there rather than like tourists who only know the stereotype?
Yeah, it's like a lot of the stereotypes are true. I mean, they
Yeah.
come from uh, a place of legitimacy,
Okay.
and I mean, certainly there's uh, more nuance to it. Um, but a lot of, it because it has kind of this like myth and lore around it, and people have certain expectations about it. It attracts a certain kind of person,
Yeah.
and the uh, the people it attracts sometimes are not the most what like traditionally upstanding, and that's I think what kind of perpetuates the um, uh, stereotypes about it, that it's very materialistic and shallow and cutthroat um, and fake, like all of that, like because that mythology exists around it, it attracts people who contribute to it, I think. But at the same time, I do believe that there is a tremendous amount of nuance to even those types of people. Like even the most like the seemingly the worst ones are, there is a humanity there, and there's a kind of very universally relatable um, desperation and um, uh, this desire to, I think, fit in somewhere and to find something. Like everybody's kind of just searching for something, and they might not. It might not look like the type of thing um, that other people would want to search for, and they might go about searching for it in ways that are less um, uh, that seem um, unpleasant, but there's still like I think a very real human element um, to the city and to the people in it, and that's something I try to capture. That, like, a lot of the characters I write about are tend to be, and particularly I think in #ThigGap, rather seemingly unpleasant people, but the common denominator, like if you really look closely, is not how awful they are, but how sad they all are.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And I mean, people, especially horror readers, but I think people in general, um, are used to seeing that and are drawn to that in our reality TV shows. I mean, there's a reason why people binge watch shows like The Vanderpump Rules or The Hills or the Real Housewives of wherever, is because I feel like people are drawn to that kind of like vapid escalation of drama, but also because there's something there that it goes beyond the drama. It's like the relatability, I think, in some situations, like seeing yourself mirrored in these people who are so detestable or annoying or tragic, but seeing yourself mirrored in those people and seeing how they respond to each other and stuff is just like so attractive. And I feel like reading your book was, I mean, it was just compulsive. Like I've said that before about your work, where it's like when I'm not reading it, I'm thinking about reading it. And it's one of those things where like stop you can't stop and put a bookmark in it and set it down and walk away from a book like that, for me. I don't know.
well, thank you. It's
Yeah. I
very
mean,
flattering.
that's how I felt. Um, okay. I have another good question here, but I also texted my neighbor because I heard her dog outside barking, and I was like, please bring your dog in. Um, okay. Yes. What compelled you to tell the story of Helen of Troy? Because, well, I always say Helen of Troy, but it's Helen Troy. What compelled you to tell her story?
I mean, all of my books really every single one of them is in some way, through some obfuscation and various degrees of distortion and um, uh, removal. Like I'm writing about something that like some sort of demon that I need to exercise, or various demons that I need to
Yeah.
exercise. So there are things uh, in that book, definitely, that again, through various degrees of metaphor and analogy, that uh, I was trying to piece together and maybe figure out, and I usually, in some kind of roundabout way, uh, get there at the end of the book, or sometime after the book. Like, it helps me kind of get to that point. That's what um, what I'm always trying to do. It's always a very kind of personal um, journey for me, but at this, on the same token, it's also an exploration of external things as well, and things that I see happening in the culture and society around me. And I do believe that, because the protagonist does have a very severe eating disorder, and I think it is something that maybe isn't represented in the doesn't maybe have the best representation in fiction today, and when it is represented, is maybe not always done so in a, I think, um, the best way it could be. And just, from my very limited perspective, and I wanted to kind of explore that and kind of give a voice to that, uh, and but furthermore, like, it's not, again, you look closer, it while the protagonist is suffering from an eating disorder, it's about so much more than her eating disorder. It's about her loneliness, and um, the alienation created by societal expectations, particularly through social media,
Oh, yeah.
um, and through her, chosen career path as a model, and the people with whom she surrounds herself, and um, this kind of um, like empty void that she's wandering through. And um, so that was kind of the core thing I wanted to explore, was that, uh, and like there's a line in it where she says, like, there's something like 13 million people in Los Angeles, and I never know where any of them are, and it always feels like I'm the only one here, something to that effect.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really common thing. I don't know. I mean, Los Angeles is the only big city like I've lived in, um, and so I don't know if it's universally applicable to all, major metropolitan areas, or if it's just specific to Los Angeles. But I know it's something that I've experienced, and it's something that people I'm close to have experienced, where, like, there are people everywhere, but it
Yeah.
can feel so vacant.
Yeah.
And uh, um, and that in particular was something I really wanted to kind of delve into, and that I think, um, people uh, will hopefully be able to relate to in some ways, because I think everybody experiences that to some degree or another, no matter where you live, or um, what your experience may be. I think there's a universality to loneliness.
Yeah, because you can feel surrounded by people and still feel really lonely inside. Um, and yeah, that is like a major kind of feeling in the book, is just like watching Helen go through life with these people and these connections, but not really being tethered to anyone, and just everyone having their own compartmentalized like lifestyle where it's just, yeah, it doesn't bring anybody in. You're kind of with people, but you're not a part of it, if that
Yeah,
makes.
you lack that connection.
Yeah, you're with people, but it's not you. I mean, just being with someone isn't knowing them.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah, that's really important. And I think like what you said about social media brings me to my next question, which is about the title, actually, hashtag thigh gap. Like, I do want people to know, and I messed it up when I said it like in the very beginning when we opened, but the title is hashtag thigh gap with that hashtag. And you brought that to my attention as being something that was important to you. And I feel like readers might want to know like what gave you um, the inspiration for that title, and why is it important to you?
Yeah, great question, and it is extremely important, in that I mean, like I said, the social media and the alienation that comes from social media so often is a big factor in the book, but also it's on a deeper level. There is this kind of I think particularly in various spheres of social media, there can be this kind of collective, almost psychosis, uh,
Yeah.
where where everybody is kind of partaking in the same sort of delusion and validating each other's delusions, and nobody is really like um, seeing things for how they really are, and nobody is um, calling anybody out on the fact that they're not seeing things for
Mm,
how they are.
yeah.
Um, and that is very much Helen's experience in the book. In uh, the physical world, is she is surrounded by people who are extremely eager to validate her delusions and her um, uh, the fallacies that she has created about herself and about her life, and um, and it very much in a way that I think is similar to that social media experience where everybody's kind of just reinforcing each other's um, uh, uh, delusions. And so
Yeah.
because of that, like I really that that was what I was going for, is this idea that like she's surrounded by these people who just um, there are multiple points where she is begging for help and she has people who are telling her she doesn't need help, and um, and that again in various spheres of social media can happen, um, and to an extent I think it does graduate to real life as well. Like I
Yeah.
think that is something that happens. I see it happen in real life where people it's uh, whether it's because it's easier or because of a lack of like a desire to avoid conflict, or just because everybody is partaking in the in a very similarly branded delusion that they all just kind of keep validating each other. And
Yeah.
um, so that was the reason for the title.
Yeah. And also like because I promote the book on social media and I put the title hashtag thigh gap, it obviously is an actual hashtag. Um, so what do you think about that? Like if readers click on it, what is that experience like?
Well, I mean, if they follow that rabbit hole, I mean, down like I suppose they could end up in some rather dark places of the Twitter sphere,
Yep.
and uh, but but I don't know that that's something that people would be doing, and not that I would encourage you to do, is to like go explore the
Yeah.
rabbit hole of hashtag thigh gap and where
Yeah.
that might lead you in, Twitter or Instagram. But like certainly wasn't, you know the idea is to kind of encapsulate that feeling and that
Not a
mood.
suggestion.
Right, exactly.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I first heard of the actual thigh gap thing on Instagram actually when I was like, even before I was on Bookstagram or anything like that, or like really using Instagram. It might have been like an article I was reading. But there's so many like body positivity and other kind of like hashtags about dieting or disorders or whatever that have like their own hashtags, and then eventually like Instagram catches wind of it and will, put like triggers and warnings on a lot of stuff to have to do with dieting and body image and stuff on Instagram as like blockers, which I think is just like kind of interesting also in the themes of the book, because like you were saying, like this is a topic that is, I don't want to say it's like taboo, but like the representation isn't a lot. Like this is the first novel that I've read that deals with this particular situation like explicitly in a character, in a main character. um but I'm not reading like, I'm genre reading, so I mean this is from a horror perspective. It's not something that I bump into a lot. So for me, as curating this line for Cemetery Gates Media, Joe and I talked about it and we were like, I feel like this is important in terms of representation. I mean, people are talking all the time about, representing people who have, neurodiversity or ADHD or you know, just a plethora of ways that we see ourselves and identify. And for you to write a story and for you to have Helen Troy, you know, represent this issue, I think is probably really important to people who don't feel seen um, in horror.
Yeah, I mean that's the hope, for sure. And I think, and you raise a really good point in that, like, um, you're right. There are a lot of cases, I think, where social media sites, Instagram in particular, will shut down people for promoting diet culture and things like that. And I don't, I want to be careful here because there can certainly be some very toxic and depending on your own experience, triggering things that you could find going down those rabbit holes. But at the same time, it is certainly, I think, it, the body positivity movement has um, can be weaponized against people in that sphere in a way that we don't see it weaponized against them necessarily on the other side of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, and that's not to say, pro one or the other, that but I do think it's something that's worth noting is uh, that there is the idea of skinny shaming is I think much more now uh, tolerated and socially permissible, like you talk in your foreword to the book, which I love. That is, it's much more socially permissible to skinny shame somebody than it is to fat shame somebody, and not that either should ever be okay.
Right.
But I think the the body positivity movement has its well, there's so many good things that have come out of it. It is skewed in one direction in a way that I think has kind of left other people who struggle with a different aspect of it, in kind of out in the cold, and I think that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. I mean, I don't think people are gonna see the title of this book or read the synopsis and not know what this book is about. Um, I think they'll know, and if it's triggering, then obviously it might not be like the safest book for everyone to read. But just going through some of the early reviews, I think people are having so many great discussions about this book, and just talking really honestly and vulnerably about the way that it made them feel. I've read some stuff in some of these reviews that have like brought me to tears, like just people talking about their experiences or the way that this book made them feel. So I mean, I feel like you should feel really proud of yourself, that you brought something to light that I don't think the reviewers and readers would have had the opportunity to share some of the things that they've shared in their reviews, um, unless they've read a book like this. So,
Yeah, it's definitely been very humbling
yeah.
to see. I don't like I'll read the reviews for like up to the release, and then for like the first month or so afterward, and then I step away and stop.
That's probably really smart.
Uh, but so I have been been reading them, and it's been very I wasn't sure how it was going to be,
Right, sure, yeah.
how people were going to respond to it, because the thing about Helen Troy is she is not a very um, neat, nicely wrapped representation. Like she has her flaws and is very, as many reviewers have called her, problematic, and not like, and the reviewers who have, at least thus far, have not said so in a negative way. But I think like that was important to me too. Is I think it keeps her real. Like there are, I think really, there's a really ugly, unpleasant side to that type of experience that can be very cruel and judgmental. That I think in order for an accurate, like it to be an accurate portrayal, like needed to be conveyed through the narrative and through her character, even though she's, like I said, as many have said, she's kind of a terrible person. Although I don't even know that I would say that. I don't even know that she's a terrible person as much as
Yeah,
she's
he's just real. I mean,
yeah, like, and that was really what I was going for, is real. Like she might, she certainly doesn't have thoughts and opinions and actions that are necessarily the most pleasant, but I mean, who does? And
yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, like, we're all assholes in the eyes of other people on our worst day.
yeah,
So, I mean, if you shit the bed on Twitter or on social media or whatever, like at work or in front of your coworkers or your first day on the job or whatever, and you have this like horrible day, and that's the snapshot that you leave with people, then that's how they're going to view you. Like, oh, okay, so she's, a cold-hearted bitch, and that's how you're going to be perceived for, among those people for however long. But around like other people or people you treat differently because they love you and they know you or whatever, they're going to say all these glowing things about that person. So it's just interesting that this is a slice of time for Helen. We didn't see her childhood. We don't see her in middle school. Like, This is a slice of time for Helen. And I think if we knew everyone's full story from beginning to end, there wouldn't hardly be any people that you couldn't have empathy for or relate to in some way or another.
Yeah, and I think that, like I said earlier, like the common denominator with her and as well as with really all the characters, she's very, very sad.
Mm-hmm.
She's sad and lonely and alienated, and not getting uh, the the relationships that she has are, whether through her fault or the fault of others or a mix, are just not giving her what she needs, and uh, and I suppose in a lot of ways she's acting, kind of out against all of that. But uh, that's, I when I look at a character like that, I think, not so much about how judgmental and cruel she is. Like, I think more that she's just very sad.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good word for her. Um, well, before we wrap it up and say goodbye, I did want to just give you an opportunity to talk to the Nightworms fan base or your fan base about anything coming up for you. And, is hashtag ThighGap like a precursor or a preview to kind of the vibe of writing or the style of writing that you're leaning towards, or are you going to like diversify, or like what can we expect from you, Chandler, in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I think hashtag Thigh Gap is definitely like more indicative of what you can expect from me in the future. But again, like I said earlier, like it's it's still so much, like it contains so much of what I think readers like um, about my earlier books,
Mm-hmm.
and the book that you mentioned, the novel that's coming out through Stygian next year, Cruel and Splendid Thirst. There's no violence in that either,
Yeah, right.
at all.
Yeah,
In fact, that's not even a horror novel. um,
yeah.
but it's but the the tragic love story and the sadness and the dark glamour and all of that, like, is very much a thing. The shared, like, overlapping events and characters from previous books is all there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really the only thing that's been removed is the violence. So, like, I mean, if there are, and I think there are probably some fans who just like the violence, and to those fans, I would say, like, if that is all you ever got out of it, then there are certainly other writers who can deliver that. But I don't think that's the majority of them. I really think the
Yeah,
majority of my fan base is coming back for something else, some other element, I would think, because there are plenty of authors who do uh, the violence thing, and frankly do it better than I do. Like, I don't get off on writing violence, and like I mean, it's just not, like, it's always served some sort of purpose in the narratives that I've had before. Um, so, uh, but it's never been the purpose, and so yeah, like, that's and I just can't do it anymore. Like, I never wanted to be that guy. Like, I was never trying to be the shock jock. And I just, based on my reputation and the success that I kind of enjoyed, and continue to enjoy, like, um, I kind of towed that line deliberately, and now it's but I feel like I'm at a place where I can say, like, that's um that's not the magic ingredient, and for, there might be a select few people for somewhere that it is, and to them I'm sorry, like that. I just can't do it anymore. But I do believe that the vast majority of my readership will find in each, in this book and in future books, the same things that keep them coming back to each book. Because I love my fans. They've been very, very good to me, and they're incredibly, incredibly loyal, and I want to give them, what what they're looking for, and I intend to do that to the best of my ability. I just can't write any more abortion clinic scenes. I just can't.
Yeah, you know what? When you were talking, you said something that really I keyed into, which that dark glamour that you said, like this sort of like, yeah, dark glamour. I mean, I can't like, if from now on, like when I'm talking about your work, like that's going to show up in some of my dialogue about your work. But the storytelling is what is so compelling. Like the way that you tell a story is what's so absorbing and what people keep coming back for. Like I've been in group chats. It was an extreme horror group chat that we developed on Instagram, and I would just feed them shit that I was reading that was like really fucked up. So it just became like this place where we would just share like fucked up stories. But it's kind of evolved into just this appreciation for just really, really good storytelling. And now when we read something that kind of blows our minds, we go in there and we tell each other, like, this is what you need to be reading. This is amazing. This is going to blow your socks off. And when we talk about, some of the books that we've been reading lately, and specifically like #ThigGap, like that's what just keeps coming up, is just the compelling nature of your storytelling and your narrative, and just how smooth it is, and the way that it just like, yeah, just kind of absorbs the reader to the point where you kind of finish it in one sitting. So,
well, I mean, it's again very flattering, and that like the style, like I think my because really that's what it is. It's a style. Like I think I have a specific kind of sentence structure and like a way of writing that is kind of easily identifiable with me, and that that doesn't change either. Like
yeah,
you've read, like you talked about A Cruel and Splendid Thirst. Like it's the same style that you see
yeah,
in the previous books. Like it sounds like it's written by me. It's just nobody's having threesomes in abortion clinics anymore.
yeah, good. That's fine with me.
I never wanted to be known for that. Like, it's been, I guess, the book's been very good to me. This
Yeah,
person's very good to me, but like and that book will always be there.
right,
And if
right.
that's your thing, like it will always be there.
Yeah, it will always be there. It's always like an origin story for you. Chandler, thank you so much for joining me, and I'm just elated to bring #ThigGap into the world with you, and with Cemetery Gates Media publishing that for us. And eternally grateful that you submitted that story to me and that I got to have first eyes on it in that way. Like, it's just the whole process of doing this novella um, curation for Cemetery Gates has just been like really exciting for me. And so it's been really cool to work with you on this book. I wish it all the success, and yeah, just continue to stay in touch with you and promote this book with you. And, readers, if you, want to tag me or Chandler in some of your thoughts, like we're both down for that. I don't think Chandler shies away from getting tagged on social media. So
Yeah, no, tag me in whatever. Like I know some writers are sticky about like only tag me if it's possible. Like I don't.
yeah,
Tag me in whatever. Like
yeah, you don't strike me as somebody who shies away from that.
I don't like. Yeah.
Yeah, so very
I
cool.
get a lot of DMs. Not a lot, but I've had a number of times where people DM me like I just read Dead Inside and I hated it so much. And I always tell them like, hey,
You're like, cool, thanks for reading it.
I hope you like the next one.
Yeah.
Sorry this wasn't for you. I hope you like the next one. Like
I think I said something like, you can either read this book or you can like throw it in a dumpster and let weasels chew on it or something.
I think you did. Yeah, I did see there's some sort of rodent was chewing on that.
I didn't know how to feel after I read that book. I was like, Jesus Christ, I need to like take a bath in some bleach. It was hilarious. But yeah, so anyways, check out Chandler's work. Along the Path of Torment is an insane, triggering, wild book. But again, like Chandler's immaculate details for storytelling and stuff. So I recommend it if you can handle it. But hashtag Thigh Gap. That's what we were here for tonight. Thank you so much, Chandler.
Thank you, Sadie.
Okay. Stay put. I'm going to end this broadcast.